You probably think an elephant never forgets because it has a big brain. That's the answer everyone gives. That's where the thinking stops. But that explanation tells you almost nothing, because what elephants are actually doing when they look at your face is something far older, far stranger, and far more unsettling than simple memory. Go back, not 100 years, not 1,000. Go back 70,000 years, to the open savanna of what is now southern Africa. The grass is dry and sharp. The air smells like dust and iron. You are standing at the edge of a water source, and something is already there. 7 tons of it. It has been on this planet in roughly its current form for 5 million years. You have been on this planet in your current form for about 300,000. In evolutionary terms, you are the newcomer. You are the untested variable. And the elephant is watching you with a level of cognitive processing you will not fully understand for another 70 millennia. Here is where most people's understanding stops. They hear elephants never forget, and they picture something like a hard drive, storage, retrieval, a large mammal that simply holds more data. But that is not what is happening. What is happening is something the scientific community has only begun to decode in the last 30 years, and it rewrites the entire relationship between memory, emotion, and survival. Elephants possess a hippocampus, the brain region responsible for forming and consolidating memories, that is not just large, but structurally complex in ways that parallel the human brain more closely than almost any other animal on Earth. A 2006 study by cognitive ethologist Frans de Waal documented self-recognition in elephants using mirror tests, placing them in the same category as great apes and dolphins. 3 species, on a planet of millions. Think about that number, 3. But the mirror test only scratches the surface. What researchers at Amboseli National Park in Kenya discovered over decades of field observation was something more specific and more striking. Elephants do not just remember things in general. They remember faces, individual human faces, and they categorize those faces not by color, not by size, but by threat history, by what that person or that person's group did to them or to their family, sometimes decades earlier. A 2011 study out of the University of Sussex gave this phenomenon its clearest scientific framing. Researchers presented wild elephants in Amboseli with clothing worn by men from 2 different ethnic groups, Maasai and Kamba. The Maasai had a history of occasional conflict with elephants, spear hunting as a rite of passage. The Kamba did not. When elephants encountered the scent of Maasai clothing, their behavioral response shifted immediately and measurably. Defensive posturing, bunching together, moving away with purpose. When they encountered Kamba clothing, they were largely indifferent. Same color, same region, different history. The elephants knew, not as a group instinct. Individually, each one had encoded a threat profile and was running it in real time. This is not nostalgia. This is not sentiment. This is a survival intelligence so finely tuned it can distinguish between human subgroups based on cultural behavior patterns the elephants observed, processed, and stored, sometimes across multiple generations. Because here's the part that makes the whole picture shift. Elephants transmit threat information. An elder matriarch who encountered ivory poachers in the 1980s did not just remember. She communicated, behaviorally, vocally, through infrasound frequencies below the range of human hearing. She passed that threat assessment to her daughters, who passed it to theirs. The memory did not die with her. It traveled. You have to understand what this means in practice. Elephant herds have been documented showing avoidance of specific regions, specific roads, specific human settlements, not because any living member of the herd was harmed there, but because someone who was is gone now, and the knowledge persisted. The geography of human violence encoded in animal behavior, outlasting the humans who committed it. Now ask yourself why. Why would natural selection produce this? The answer is not complicated once you sit with it. In the Pleistocene epoch, when hominids and elephants were competing for the same water sources, the same corridors, the same seasonal grazing land, the cost of misidentifying a human group was catastrophic. A herd that could not distinguish between a harmless passing group and an active hunting party died. A matriarch who retained precise individual and group threat profiles across decades kept her family alive through droughts, migrations, human encroachment. Her memory was not a luxury. It was the mechanism of survival itself. Over a single season, this ability to recognize and remember gives a modest advantage. Over a decade, it reshapes a herd's territorial behavior. Over a century, it creates what researchers now call cultural memory in elephant populations. Behavioral patterns that look, from the outside, almost indistinguishable from what we would call collective trauma. There are elephant populations in regions of heavy historical poaching that show elevated stress hormones, disrupted social structures, and hypervigilance responses to human presence. Decades after the poaching stopped, the bodies remember what the living members never personally experienced. Over a millennium, that kind of transmitted embodied memory becomes something we might not have a precise word for. It is not instinct. It is not culture. It is something in between, something elephants developed, and something we are only now learning to read. Here is the part that should sit with you. When an elephant looks at your face, really looks, with those pale-lashed, ancient eyes, it is not just seeing you. It is running you through a recognition system refined over 5 million years of coexistence with dangerous, unpredictable, tool-using hominids. It is checking you against a database that predates your species' earliest cave paintings. It is asking, in the only language available to it, the oldest question any intelligent animal can ask. Are you the kind of creature I need to remember? The real reason elephants never forget a human face is not because their brains are large. It is because forgetting, for them, was never an option. Every generation that survived was a generation that remembered. And the ones who forgot everything. We called that extinction. They called it Tuesday, and they moved on without those families, and the ones who remained remembered that too. We like to think memory is about the past. Elephants figured out, long before we arrived with our spears and our science, that memory is entirely about the future, about who comes back, about what they do when they return, about whether your family will still be standing when the dry season breaks. You are being remembered right now by creatures who have been practicing this art longer than our species has existed. The only question worth asking is what kind of memory you are making.